The marketplace explosion throws Kira backward, flames licking at her threadbare clothes, but through the smoke and screaming, she sees it, a tiny hand pressed against a carriage window, and every instinct in her Omega Wolf screams at her to move. She doesn't think. There's no time for thinking. The world has become fire and chaos. People run in every direction, their market day finery catching sparks. Fruit carts overturn, spilling apples that roll through pools of blood. Guards shout orders that no one can hear over the roar of flames and the awful creaking of metal being torn apart. But Kira hears the whimper. Feels it in her bones, in the part of her that's always been too sensitive, too aware. The part that makes her Omega, makes her weak in everyone else's eyes. Her stall, 3 hours of setting up charms made from river stones and dried herbs, is already destroyed. Not that it matters. The coins she might have earned today wouldn't have been enough anyway. They're never enough. The royal carriage sits at the center of the devastation, its gilt edges blackened, one side caved in completely. Flames crawl up the velvet curtains. Guards lie scattered around it like broken toys. And that hand, small and desperate, presses against the window. Kira runs. Her wolf surges forward, not a full shift but enough. Enough for speed, for strength, for the desperate courage that makes her leap over a fallen guard and slide under a piece of burning timber. The heat blisters her skin. Smoke fills her lungs. She ignores it all. The carriage door is jammed. She can see the child inside now, a little girl with dark curls, maybe 5 years old, dressed in pale blue silk that seems obscene in all this destruction. The girl's eyes are wide with terror, tears streaming down her soot-stained cheeks. Hold on. Kira shouts, though she doesn't know if the child can hear her. She slams her shoulder against the door once, twice. It doesn't budge. Above her, the carriage roof groans, flames eating through the support beams. She has seconds before the whole thing collapses. Kira grabs a piece of debris, part of a market stall's iron frame, and swings it at the window. The glass shatters. She clears the jagged edges with her arm, feeling them slice through her sleeve, her skin. Doesn't matter. Come here, sweetheart, she says, reaching through. Come to me. The little girl scrambles toward her, small hands grabbing at Kira's arms. She's crying, gasping, but she's moving. Kira pulls her through the window just as a support beam crashes down where the child had been sitting. The girl locks her arms around Kira's neck, burying her face in Kira's shoulder. She's so small, so light. Kira can feel her heart hammering like a bird's. I've got you, Kira whispers, wrapping both arms around the child. I've got you. She runs again, this time away from the carriage, away from the worst of the flames. A piece of burning wood falls from somewhere above. Kira twists, taking the impact on her back instead of letting it touch the girl. The pain is bright and immediate, but she doesn't stop. She makes it to the edge of the marketplace, to a water trough that somehow survived intact. She sets the girl down beside it, checking her for injuries. Soot and tears, but no blood. No burns. You're okay, Kira says, smoothing the dark curls back from the child's face. You're safe now. The little girl looks up at her with eyes too old for her face. Kira, she says. Kira blinks. How do you? Kira. Kira. People are shouting her name. She realizes they must have been calling it when she ran into the flames, warning her, thinking her insane. The little girl's fingers tighten on Kira's burned sleeve. Kira, she repeats, like she's memorizing it. Then the guards arrive. They come like a storm, silver armor flashing even through the smoke. Rough hands grab Kira's arms, yanking her away from the child. She stumbles, her burned back screaming in protest. No. The little girl reaches for her, screaming. Kira. Kira. It's all right, Kira tries to say, but a guard's fist connects with her stomach, driving the air from her lungs. She doubles over, gasping. Check the princess, one guard barks. Princess. The word filters through Kira's pain like ice water. Kira. The child, the princess, is sobbing now, fighting the guard who's picked her up. Want Kira. Your Highness, you're safe now, the guard says, his voice gentling in a way it never would for someone like Kira. Your father will be here soon. A boot catches Kira in the ribs. She tastes copper. Omega filth, someone spits. Part of the rebel attack, no doubt. I saved her, Kira manages to gasp out. I saved. Another blow, this one to her face. Her vision explodes in stars. Save your lies for the dungeons. They drag her through the streets. She's aware of faces watching, of whispers following them. Her feet scrape against cobblestones. Blood runs down her chin. Everything hurts, but distantly, like it's happening to someone else. The palace dungeons are exactly what she'd imagine if she'd ever let herself imagine such things. Cold stone, iron bars, darkness that presses in from all sides. They throw her into a cell and she collapses on the filthy floor, her body finally giving in to the pain. She might pass out. Time becomes strange. When she opens her eyes, or maybe when she closes them, she can hear voices echoing from somewhere above. Confirmed dead. The bomb was meant for His Majesty. Lucky he was delayed in the north. The princess? Unharmed. Some Omega pulled her from the carriage. Have they questioned the Omega yet? She's in the cells. Captain wants to wait until the king arrives. Kira's blood turns cold. The king. Theron Ashcroft, the Winter King himself. She's heard the stories everyone's heard. How he took the throne at 25 when his father died. How he executed his own beta brother for conspiracy. How he's never taken a mate, never shown mercy, rules the kingdom with an iron fist that never trembles. They say his eyes are pale as ice and just as warm. They say he can smell lies on a person's breath. They say he once destroyed an entire rebel stronghold because they killed one of his soldiers, just one. Kira curls into herself on the stone floor, her burned back pressing against the cold wall. She saved a child. She saved the princess. And now she's going to die for it. Because that's how the world works when you're an Omega. When you're nothing and no one, living in the capital's slums, selling charms that probably don't even work to people who pity you more than they respect you. You don't get to be a hero. You don't get to touch royalty and walk away. Please, she whispers to the darkness, to whatever gods might listen to a worthless Omega's prayers. Please, I didn't do anything wrong. But she knows better than to hope for mercy. Somewhere above, in the gleaming halls of the palace, a little girl with dark curls is probably crying for someone named Kira. Somewhere in the north, a Winter King is riding toward the capital, fury in his wake. And here, in the cold and dark, Kira waits for her fate. Chapter 2. The Winter King arrived like a storm given human form. Kira heard him before she saw him, the thunder of boots on stone, the sharp commands that sent guards scrambling, the silence that fell like a blade whenever he passed. The entire dungeon seemed to hold its breath. She'd tried to prepare herself. Tried to imagine what death might feel like, whether it would be quick or slow, public or private. She'd prayed to the moon goddess, whispered apologies to parents she barely remembered, and made peace with the fact that her life, short and hard and meaningless as it had been, was over. But when the cell door finally opened, she wasn't ready at all. He filled the doorway, this king of winter and wolves. Tall enough that he had to duck slightly under the frame, broad-shouldered beneath a dark cloak that seemed to drink in the torchlight. His hair was black as a moonless night, pulled back from a face that could have been carved from granite. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth set in a hard line, a jaw that looked like it had forgotten how to unclench. And his eyes. Gods, his eyes. They were pale gray, almost silver, and when they locked on her, Kira felt like she'd been pinned by winter itself. Cold. Assessing. Merciless. She tried to stand, to show some dignity before the end, but her broken ribs screamed in protest. She made it halfway up the wall before her legs buckled. "Stay down." His voice matched his eyes, cold, commanding, allowing no argument. Kira froze, halfway between sitting and standing, her burned back pressed against the stone. She must look pathetic. She could smell herself, smoke and blood and fierce sweat. Her clothes were ruined, her face probably worse. Just another broken Omega waiting to be discarded. Theron Ashcroft stepped into the cell. 2 guards moved to follow, but he waved them back with one sharp gesture. The door stayed open, but he was alone with her. Close enough that she could see the road dust on his boots, the tension in his jaw, the barely controlled fury radiating off him like heat. He stared at her for a long moment. His nostrils flared slightly. Then something strange happened. His eyes widened, just a fraction. His entire body went rigid. And for just a heartbeat, the Winter King looked almost stunned. It passed so quickly Kira thought she'd imagined it. His face smoothed back into that granite mask, but she'd seen it. Something had cracked, just for a second. "You touched my daughter." Not a question. An accusation. "I saved your daughter." The words came out before Kira could stop them. Defiance she had no right to, not here, not with him. But she was going to die anyway. She might as well die with the truth. His eyes narrowed. "Tell me what happened. All of it. And know that I will smell any lie that leaves your lips." So she told him. The explosion, the flames, the small hand against the window. How her wolf had screamed at her to move, how she hadn't thought, just acted. The carriage, the broken glass, the burning wood that had struck her back. The little girl's weight in her arms, so small and fragile. Running. The guards. The beating. She left nothing out. There was no point in lying, he'd know, and besides, the truth was all she had left. Theron listened without interrupting. His face remained impassive, but she saw his hands clench when she described the guards hitting her. Saw something flicker in those winter eyes when she talked about shielding Alara with her own body. When she finished, silence filled the cell like deep water. "Why?" he finally asked. "You're Omega. And bonded. You owe loyalty to no pack, no crown. Why risk your life for a child you didn't know?" Kira met his eyes, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. Omegas didn't meet an Alpha King's gaze. But she was going to die anyway, so what did it matter? She was a child, Kira said simply. And she was scared. That's all that mattered. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite softening, she suspected this man didn't know how to soften, but something. A crack in the ice. "You're telling the truth." He said it like it surprised him, like he'd expected lies and found something he didn't know how to categorize. "Yes." He turned abruptly, striding to the cell door. "Physician. Now." Within minutes, an elderly man in fine robes hurried into the cell, medical bag in hand. He took one look at Kira and made a distressed sound. "Your Majesty, she needs immediate treatment. These burns, these bruises. Then treat her." Theron's voice was flat. "I want a full report on every injury. Cause, severity, everything." The physician worked quickly, his hands gentle as he examined her back, her ribs, her face. Kira bit her lip to keep from crying out. She wouldn't show weakness, not in front of the Winter King. She'd already shown enough. "Second-degree burns across her back and shoulders," the physician murmured. 3 broken ribs on the left side. Severe bruising consistent with being beaten. He shot a nervous glance at the guards outside the cell. Cuts on her arms from broken glass. Smoke inhalation. Malnutrition predating the incident. "Your Majesty, these injuries, the burns especially, they're consistent with shielding someone from fire and falling debris." "While being beaten by my guards," Theron said quietly. Too quietly. The temperature in the cell seemed to drop. The physician swallowed hard. Yes, Your Majesty. Theron stared at Kira for another long moment. She couldn't read his expression, couldn't begin to guess what he was thinking. Then he swept from the cell without another word, his cloak billowing behind him like dark wings. Kira sagged against the wall, exhaustion crashing over her. The physician continued his work, applying salves and wrapping her ribs, but she barely felt it. She was so tired. So confused. She should be dead by now. Why wasn't she dead? The king doesn't show mercy often, the physician said softly as he worked. If he's shown it to you, don't question it. Just be grateful. But Kira didn't feel grateful. She felt terrified. Because mercy from the Winter King felt more dangerous than his wrath. They moved her from the dungeon at dawn. Not to freedom, she'd been foolish to hope for that, but to a small room in the servants' quarters. Plain stone walls, a narrow bed, a window that overlooked the practice yards. Compared to her cell, it was a palace. Compared to her room in the slums, it was a palace. Guards stood outside her door. She was still a prisoner, just a cleaner one. A servant brought her breakfast. Real food, more than she'd eaten in a week, and plain gray dresses to replace her ruined clothes. Kira ate slowly, waiting for someone to explain what was happening. No one did. It wasn't until late afternoon that the door opened and a stern-faced woman in a housekeeper's uniform entered. The king requires your presence, she said, her tone making it clear what she thought of Omega prisoners being summoned by royalty. You're to come with me. Now. Kira followed her through a maze of corridors. The palace was enormous, all soaring ceilings and marble floors and tapestries that probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Servants scurried past without looking at her. Guards stood at attention, their faces blank. They climbed stairs, walked down another corridor, and stopped at a door carved with roses and wolves. Kira held her carefully, mindful of her injuries but unable to let go. I'm right here. You won't leave? Kira's throat tightened. She had no idea what would happen to her, had no right to make promises. But looking down at this terrified child, she couldn't bring herself to add to her fear. I won't leave, she whispered. Ilara's sobbing gradually quieted. She didn't let go of Kira, but her breathing evened out. Within minutes, she was asleep, her small body finally relaxing. Kira looked up and found Theron watching them. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes made her chest tighten. Not anger. Something else. Something almost like pain. Lay her down, he said quietly. Carefully. Kira eased Ilara back onto the pillows. The princess's hand caught hers, holding on even in sleep. Kira sat on the edge of the bed, not quite knowing what else to do. The nurse stood. Your Majesty, You're dismissed. Theron's voice was gentle but firm. All of you. Out. The nurse and housekeeper fled. The door closed. And Kira was alone with the Winter King and his sleeping daughter. Theron moved to the other side of the bed, looking down at Ilara. His face softened in a way that transformed him. For just a moment, he wasn't the feared king. He was just a father looking at his child. She hasn't slept since the attack, he said quietly. Nightmares. Screaming. Nothing helped. His eyes moved to Kira. Until you. She was frightened, Kira said. She just needed to feel safe. And you make her feel safe. He said it like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Why? Kira didn't have an answer for that. She just knew that when she looked at Ilara, something in her chest ached. Some instinct that went bone deep, older than words. My court thinks you're dangerous, Theron continued. They think you're a rebel spy, that you orchestrated the attack to get close to my daughter. My head beta wants you executed. My advisors want you questioned under torture. They think I'm being fooled by Omega tricks. His lip curled slightly at that last part. Kira's heart hammered. Are you? Going to execute me? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what I'm going to do with you, he admitted. You're a complication I don't need. A security risk. A nobody Omega who shouldn't matter. The emphasis on shouldn't made something flutter in Kira's chest. Something dangerous that she immediately tried to suppress. But my daughter needs you, Theron said. For reasons I don't understand, you're the only one who can comfort her. And I. He paused, jaw working like the words were being dragged out of him. I owe you a debt. You saved her life. That means something, even if my court doesn't think so. He straightened, and just like that, the Winter King was back. Cold. Commanding. Absolute. You will serve as Alara's personal companion until I decide otherwise. You'll have a room in this wing, adequate clothing, food. You'll be watched at all times. Step one toe out of line, and I'll know. Try to harm my daughter, and I will make your death last days. Understand? Kira nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He moved toward the door, then paused. Kira. She looked up, surprised he'd used her name. Thank you, he said quietly. For saving her. Then he was gone, leaving Kira alone with the sleeping princess and more questions than answers. The days that followed were surreal. Kira moved into a room adjoining Alara's chambers. It was small but comfortable, with an actual bed and clean linens and a window that let in real sunlight. Servants brought her meals, 3 a day, more food than she'd ever had access to. They gave her dresses in soft grays and blues, simple but well-made. She had soap that smelled like lavender, a brush for her hair, a mirror that showed her a face she barely recognized without dirt and bruises. She spent her days with Alara. Reading stories, playing games, walking in the palace gardens under the watchful eyes of guards. The princess clung to her, chattered endlessly, laughed for the first time since the attack. At night, when the nightmares came, Kira held her until she slept again. It should have felt like a dream. Instead, it felt like waiting for the axe to fall. The court hated her. She saw it in their eyes when she passed through the corridors, heard it in their whispered conversations. Guards watched her every move. Servants were cold and distant. And the nobles, the few she glimpsed from afar, looked at her like she was something foul they'd stepped in. But Alara loved her. And Theron. Theron was a mystery. He came to check on Alara every evening. Sometimes he stayed only moments, other times he lingered, watching as Kira read to his daughter or helped her with her letters. He rarely spoke to Kira, but she felt his eyes on her constantly. Assessing. Questioning. Trying to figure her out. And her wolf, traitorous thing that it was, responded to him. Paced restlessly whenever he was near. Wanted to move closer, to breathe in his scent, pine and winter air and something wild. It was insane. He was the Alpha King. She was nothing. But her wolf didn't care about logic. It was on the 7th night that everything changed. Kira had just gotten Alara to sleep when she heard voices in the corridor outside. Angry voices. She moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. Can't keep that Omega here. A man's voice, deep and furious. It's madness, Theron. The court is in an uproar. The court will adjust. Theron's voice, cold as always. My decision is final, Marcus. Final? You've let an Omega, a street rat, into the heart of the palace. She has access to your daughter, to your private chambers. She could be anyone, could be working for anyone. She saved Alara's life. Or she orchestrated the entire attack to get exactly where she is now. Marcus's voice rose. Think, Theron. Use that brilliant tactical mind of yours. The rebels are getting bolder. The attack wasn't random, they were targeting Alara specifically. A pause. Then Theron, quietly, I know. Do you know why? Marcus's voice dropped, but Kira could still hear it. The rumors, Theron. They're spreading. Whispers that Alara isn't your blood daughter. That Lyanna had an affair before she died. If those rumors are believed, if there's any truth to them, Alara has no legitimate claim to the throne. The kingdom could fracture. Civil war. Kira's blood ran cold. Those rumors are lies. Theron's voice was deadly quiet. Spread by enemies who want to destabilize the crown. Are they? Can you be certain? Lyanna kept secrets, Theron. You know she did. And Alara, she doesn't look like you. She has her mother's coloring, yes, but... Enough. The single word cracked like a whip. I'm trying to protect you. Protect the kingdom. If Alara isn't your heir, if she's a complication, then maybe the kindest thing would be to remove that complication before. The sound of a body slamming against a wall echoed through the corridor. Kira heard a choked gasp, then Theron's voice, low and lethal. You just suggested killing my daughter. I suggested removing a security risk. You suggested killing a 5-year-old child. My child. I don't care what lies are being spread. I don't care about bloodlines or rumors or court politics. Alara is my daughter. Mine. And if you ever suggest harming her again, I will tear out your throat with my bare hands. Are we clear? A gasping sound. Yes, Your Majesty, clear. You're relieved of your duties as head beta. Get out of my sight. If I see your face before tomorrow's dawn, I'll consider it a declaration of war. Footsteps, rapid and retreating. Then silence. Kira stepped back from the door, her heart racing. She looked at Alara, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger swirling around her. The little girl wasn't just the heir to the throne. She was a target. A political liability. And Kira, by becoming important to her, had just stepped into the deadliest game in the kingdom. The door opened. Theron stood there, his face a mask of cold fury. His eyes found hers, and she saw the question in them. How much did you hear? Everything, Kira whispered. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across Alara's sleeping form. Now you know, he said quietly. The real reason the rebels targeted her. The real danger she's in. They want to prove she's illegitimate. They want to destroy the monarchy. Alara is just the excuse. His hands clenched into fists. I don't care what they say. She's mine. My daughter. My heir. And I will burn this kingdom to ashes before I let anyone harm her. Kira believed him. The fierce protectiveness in his voice, the barely controlled violence in his posture, this was a man who would go to war for his child. Who would become the monster they all feared if it meant keeping her safe. They'll come for her again, Kira said. Won't they? Yes. No hesitation. Just brutal honesty. And they'll come for anyone close to her. Anyone who could be used as leverage. His eyes bored into hers. That includes you now. Kira swallowed hard. I didn't ask for this. No. You just asked to save a child's life. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. Unfortunately, that makes you dangerous. To them. To their plans. You're a complication, Omega. Just like Alara. Just like me. He moved toward the door, then stopped, his back to her. I'm not good at this, he said quietly. At trusting. At letting people close. Lyanna, he cut himself off, jaw working. I failed once. Failed to protect someone I should have protected. I won't fail again. Not with Alara. Which means I need to know, can I trust you? Kira looked at the sleeping child between them. Thought of small hands reaching through flames, of a frightened voice crying her name. Thought of how Alara had clung to her, how something in Kira had responded to that need with a fierceness she didn't understand. Yes, she said simply. You can trust me. Theron turned, and for just a moment, his expression was almost vulnerable. Almost human. Then welcome to the most dangerous position in the kingdom, Kira of no pack, no title, no status. You're now the only person my daughter truly trusts. The only person who can comfort her nightmares. His winter eyes held hers. The only person who makes me question everything I thought I knew about Omegas, about fate, about debts that might be more than they seem. He left before she could respond, leaving her alone with questions, with fear, and with the growing certainty that she'd just stepped into a story that was far bigger and more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Outside the window, the moon rose over the palace. And in her chest, Kira's wolf howled, whether in warning or anticipation, she couldn't tell. Chapter 3. Time moved differently within palace walls. Days blurred into weeks, each one bleeding into the next with a rhythm Kira had never known in her previous life. Wake at dawn. Breakfast with Alara. Lessons in the library. Walks in the garden. Stories before bed. Sleep, sometimes plagued by dreams of fire and smoke, sometimes surprisingly peaceful. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, slowly, it began to feel like home. Alara was the reason. The little princess was healing, bit by bit, like a flower finding sunlight after a long winter. The nightmares came less frequently. The tears dried faster. And the smiles, gods, the smiles, came more easily with each passing day. Tell me about the market again, Alara would beg, curled up beside Kira in the garden, her head on Kira's lap. About the people and the colors and all the food. So Kira would tell her. Stories of the world beyond these walls, of street vendors who sang their wares, of festivals where everyone danced together regardless of rank, of the river that ran through the slums where children played and mothers washed clothes and life happened in all its messy, beautiful chaos. I want to see it someday, Alara would say, her eyes distant. The real world. Not just from a carriage window. Someday you will, Kira would promise, smoothing the dark curls back from the child's face. When you're queen, you can go wherever you want. Will you come with me? The question always made Kira's chest tighten. If I can, sweetheart. If I can. Because the truth was, Kira didn't know how long this would last. Didn't know when the other shoe would drop, when the Winter King would decide she'd served her purpose and send her away. She was living on borrowed time in a borrowed life, and she knew it. But Alara didn't need to carry that burden. So Kira taught her other things instead. How to be brave when you're scared. How to find strength in kindness rather than cruelty. How to see people, really see them, beyond their ranks and titles. Like you see Papa, Alara said one afternoon. They were in the library, surrounded by books, sunlight streaming through the tall windows. You're not scared of him like everyone else is. Kira's hands stilled on the book she'd been reading. I'm a little scared of him. But not much. Alara's perceptiveness was sometimes startling. Everyone else looks at him like he's going to hurt them. You just look at him like he's a person. Like he's a person. Such a simple thing. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe no one else bothered to see the man beneath the crown. Your father is a good man, Kira said carefully. He's had to be hard to protect his kingdom. To protect you. But that doesn't mean he's cruel. Alara considered this, then smiled. I'm glad you're here, Kira. Papa smiles more now. Did you notice? Not big smiles, but little ones. Around his eyes. Kira had noticed. Gods help her, she'd noticed everything about Theron Ashcroft. The way he came to Alara's chambers every evening without fail, no matter how late the council meetings ran. How he'd sit on the edge of his daughter's bed and read to her in a voice that lost its sharp edges, became almost gentle. How he'd tuck the blankets around her with hands that could kill but chose to be tender. How he'd pause in the doorway on his way out, his eyes finding Kira in the shadows, holding her gaze for just a moment too long before he left. She'd catch him watching sometimes. During Alara's lessons, she'd look up and find him standing in the corridor, half hidden by shadow, his expression unreadable. In the gardens, she'd feel the weight of his stare from a window high above. At meals, the few times she'd been summoned to dine with them, his eyes would track her movements like a wolf watching prey. Except it didn't feel like being hunted. It felt like being seen. And that was far more dangerous. "Does your wolf like my papa's wolf?" Elara asked suddenly, with the bluntness only a child could manage. Kira nearly dropped the book. "What?" "My wolf, she's just a baby still, but she's there, she likes you. And she likes when Papa's wolf is close to yours. She says they sing to each other." Elara tilted her head, curious. "Do they?" Heat flooded Kira's cheeks. "Elara, I don't think. It's okay if they do. Mama used to tell me that wolves know things before people do. That they're smarter about feelings." Mama. Elara rarely mentioned her mother. Kira knew so little about Queen Lyanna, only that she died 3 years ago, only that her death had turned Theron from a firm king into a frozen one. "Your mama was very wise," Kira said softly. "I miss her." Elara's voice went small. "But I'm glad you're here. You make the missing hurt less." Kira pulled the child close, blinking back tears. This little girl had wrapped herself around Kira's heart so completely, so thoroughly, that the thought of leaving her. No. She couldn't think about that. Not yet. The Southern Pack delegation arrived on a gray morning that tasted like coming rain. Kira was in the gardens with Elara, teaching her the names of different flowers, when the commotion started. Servants rushing, guards assembling, the whole palace shifting into formal mode. "What's happening?" Elara asked, frowning. A guard approached, bowing slightly. "The princess is summoned to greet the visitors, Your Highness." "You as well," he added to Kira, his tone making it clear what he thought of Omega servants being included in formal delegations. They were ushered inside, through corridors that suddenly felt too small, too crowded. Nobles had gathered in the throne room, all silk and jewels and barely concealed curiosity. And in the center of it all stood Theron, every inch the Winter King, his face a mask of cold courtesy. Beside him stood a man who could only be Alpha Daemon Blackthorn. He was handsome in an obvious way, golden hair, strong jaw, the kind of smile that probably made most Omegas weak in the knees. He wore his power like expensive cologne, heavy and attention-seeking. His eyes swept the room and landed on Kira with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Your Majesty," Daemon was saying, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "You honor us with your hospitality." "The Southern Packs are always welcome," Theron replied, the lie sitting comfortably in his formal tone. "I trust your journey was pleasant. Long, but worthwhile. I've heard such interesting things about your court lately." Daemon's eyes flicked to Kira again. "About your household." The way he said it made Kira want to hide behind Elara. She felt exposed, like every person in the room could see right through her plain gray dress to the scared Omega beneath. Theron's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Princess Elara, come greet our guest." Elara stepped forward with the poise of someone much older, curtsying perfectly. "Welcome, Alpha Blackthorn." "Your Highness." Daemon bowed, but his attention remained on Kira. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Kira serves as my daughter's companion," Theron said, each word clipped short. "She is under my personal protection." The emphasis on personal protection should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like a target painted on Kira's back. Daemon's smile widened. How fortunate for her. The formal dinner that night was torture. Kira had been ordered to attend, Theron's command, delivered through a servant who looked as confused as Kira felt. She'd been given a dress for the occasion, dark blue silk that felt foreign against her skin, and a seat at the high table where she absolutely did not belong. She was placed between a duchess who wouldn't speak to her and a lord who wouldn't stop speaking to her, his wine-soaked breath making her stomach turn. Across the table, Theron sat rigid as carved stone, while Daemon held court with stories of his pack's victories and veiled suggestions about alliances through marriage. After all, Your Majesty, Damon said, gesturing with his wine glass, a king needs a strong mate. Someone who can provide political advantages, strengthen borders, produce worthy heirs. Several noble ladies around the table straightened hopefully. Theron's expression didn't change. The succession is secure, Theron said flatly. I have an heir. Yes, the princess. Charming child. Damon's tone suggested he found Alara anything but charming. But surely you see the value in diversifying your bloodline. Political marriages have held kingdoms together since the dawn of time. I'm aware of history, Alpha Blackthorn. Of course, of course. I merely suggest that sometimes we must think beyond personal preference for the good of our people. Damon's eyes slid to Kira. Though I can understand how certain distractions might cloud judgment. The temperature in the room dropped. Every conversation died. Even the servants froze. Theron set down his fork with deliberate care. Explain yourself. No offense intended, Your Majesty. I simply noticed your household includes an unmated Omega of considerable quality. Rare to see one so unspoiled in appearance, so naturally submissive. As I'm currently without a mate myself, I thought perhaps. No. The single word cracked like thunder. Damon blinked, his smile faltering. Your Majesty, I haven't even made my offer. The answer is no. Kira is not available for any arrangement. But surely as her king, you have the right to. I have the right to protect those under my care from insulting proposals. Theron stood, and the sheer presence of him made several people flinch. This dinner is concluded. Alpha Blackthorn, we will discuss trade agreements tomorrow. Alone. He swept from the room without another word. The message was clear, dismissed. Damon's face flushed with fury and humiliation. His eyes found Kira, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. Not desire. Not even lust. Rage. Pure, calculating rage. She fled the dining hall as soon as she could, her heart hammering. But she'd barely made it to the gardens, needing air, needing space, when a hand grabbed her arm and spun her around. Damon. He'd followed her. Running away, little Omega? His alpha command rolled over her like a physical weight, making her knees buckle. I don't think so. Kira tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Let me go. Why? So you can scurry back to your king? Tell me, does he bed you? Is that why he's so protective? Damon yanked her closer, his other hand coming up to grip her chin. Or are you still unclaimed? Still available for someone who knows how to properly handle an Omega? Terror spiked through her. Please. You should be grateful someone of my status wants you. A street rat playing at being nobility. His thumb pressed against her throat, right where a mating mark would go. I could give you real power. Real protection. All you have to do is submit. His canines lengthened, and Kira realized with horror what he intended. He was going to mark her. Here, now, without consent, without. Get away from her. The voice was barely human. More growl than words, vibrating with a fury that made the air itself feel dangerous. Theron stood at the garden entrance, and he was terrifying. His eyes had gone full wolf, silver and glowing in the darkness. His canines were fully extended. Every muscle in his body was coiled for violence. Damon released Kira so fast she stumbled. Your Majesty, I was simply. You were assaulting someone under my protection. Theron's voice was deadly quiet. You used Alpha command on an Omega without cause. You threatened to mark her without consent. Any one of those would be grounds for execution in my kingdom. Surely you're overreacting. Am I? Theron moved forward, and it was like watching death take form. Because from where I'm standing, you just committed 3 capital offenses. Give me one reason why I shouldn't kill you where you stand. Damon's face went pale. He was powerful, but Theron was the Winter King. There was no contest, and everyone knew it. I apologize. I misread the situation. You misread nothing. You knew exactly what you were doing. Theron was close enough now that Kira could see the barely restrained violence in every line of his body. You thought you could take what you wanted because she's Omega. Because she's lowborn. Because in your arrogance, you believed I wouldn't care. Your Majesty. You're leaving. Tonight. Now. You have 1 hour to get yourself and your delegation beyond my borders. If you're still in my kingdom at dawn, I will hunt you down personally. And I promise you, Alpha Blackthorn, you don't want to know what happens when someone threatens what's mine. The possessive growl in that last word made Kira's wolf sing. Made something deep in her chest unlock and reach for him. Damon saw it. His eyes widened with understanding, then narrowed with malice. So that's how it is. The Winter King has claimed a street Omega as his mate. This will be very interesting news for the other packs. Get out. Damon left, but not before shooting Kira a look that promised this wasn't over. That she'd made an enemy tonight. The moment he was gone, Theron turned to Kira. The wolf faded from his eyes, replaced by something almost like fear. Did he hurt you? Did he? I'm fine. Her voice shook. You came before he could. I felt it. Your fear. Your terror. I was in a meeting and I felt it like a knife in my chest. His hands came up, hovering near her arms but not quite touching. Kira, Guards appeared at the garden entrance. Your Majesty, Alpha Blackthorn is demanding an audience. He can demand whatever he wants. Make sure he leaves. Use force if necessary. Theron's eyes never left Kira. And send word to Alara's chambers. Extra guards. No one gets close to the princess tonight. The guards hurried off. Silence fell in the garden, broken only by the sound of their breathing. I should go, Kira whispered. This is my fault. I shouldn't have come to dinner, shouldn't have. Don't. Theron's voice was rough. Don't you dare blame yourself for his actions. But the court, they're all talking. About us. About. Let them talk. They're saying you need a proper mate. An alpha female who can. I know what they're saying. His hands finally settled on her arms, gentle despite the tension in his body. I hear it every day. Names suggested. Meetings arranged. Political advantages outlined. His thumb traced a small circle on her sleeve. None of it matters. Kira looked up at him, confused. How can it not matter? You're the king. The kingdom needs. The kingdom needs a ruler who won't be distracted by an unsatisfied bond. The words came out like a confession torn from his chest. Do you know what you are to me, Kira? Her heart stopped. I'm no one. I'm just. You're my mate. The words hung in the air between them, heavy as fate. My true mate. The one the moon goddess chose for me. I knew at the moment I walked into that cell and your scent hit me. Honeysuckle and rain and home. My wolf recognized you instantly. Kira couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This wasn't possible. This didn't happen to Omegas like her, didn't. I've been fighting it for weeks, Theron continued, his voice raw. Telling myself it was impossible, that I couldn't mate with someone so far beneath my station, that the political fallout would destroy everything I've built. I've tried to stay away from you, tried to see you as just Alara's companion, but what? But I can't. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, and the simple intimacy of it made tears prick her eyes. I can't stay away. Can't stop watching you. Can't stop wanting to protect you, provide for you, claim you as mine. My wolf is going insane being near you and not being able to mark you. And tonight, when I felt your fear, when I thought that bastard might hurt you. He pulled back, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. "I would have killed him," Theron said simply. "Consequences be damned. Political alliance be damned. If he'd marked you, I would have torn him apart with my bare hands." Kira's hand came up to touch his face without thinking. He leaned into it like a man starved for touch. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because I'm a coward." The admission seemed to cost him. "Because telling you meant admitting it to myself. Meant accepting that my mate is someone the court will never accept. Someone whose presence puts her in constant danger. Someone who deserves better than a king with too many enemies and not enough heart left to give. Theron. I loved Lyanna once. Or I thought I did. But it was never real. Never right." His voice went bitter. "Our marriage was political. She did her duty, gave me a child, and then sought comfort elsewhere. With my beta brother, of all people. I knew. I always knew. But I couldn't bring myself to care enough to stop it." Kira's heart ached for him. For the young king forced into a loveless marriage. For the father raising a daughter who might not be his blood but was his in every way that mattered. "When Lyanna died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. That I'd be the Winter King forever, cold, alone, adequate." His thumb brushed her cheek. "Then you ran into fire to save a child you didn't know. Then you held my daughter while she cried and made her feel safe again. Then you looked at me like I was a person instead of a throne. And suddenly I was feeling everything, wanting everything, and it terrified me." "It terrifies me too," Kira admitted. "You're the king. I'm nobody. This can't work. I know. Which is why I'm giving you a choice." He stepped back, and the loss of his warmth felt like winter returning. "Leave. Tonight. I'll give you enough gold to start over anywhere you want. A new life, away from palace politics and danger. Away from me. Or stay. Be my mate. Accept the bond. Stand beside me despite every obstacle the world will throw at us." His eyes held hers. "I won't force you. Won't command you. This has to be your choice, Kira. Free and clear." Kira stared at him, her mind reeling. This was insane. Impossible. She was a street omega, a nobody, someone who'd been selling charms in the market just weeks ago. How could she possibly be queen? How could she survive in this world of politics and poison? But when she looked at Theron, really looked at him, she didn't see the Winter King. She saw the man who read bedtime stories to his daughter. Who remembered servants' names. Who defended her honor against an alpha who should have been his ally. Who was offering her a choice instead of taking what he wanted. She saw her mate. "I need time," she heard herself say. "To think. This is. I understand." He stepped back further, putting proper distance between them. "Take all the time you need. Just, be safe. After tonight, there will be consequences. Damon won't forgive being humiliated." He turned to leave, and Kira felt something in her chest tear. "Theron?" He paused, looking back. "Thank you. For protecting me. For giving me a choice." Something soft crossed his face. "Always, Kira. For you, always." Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the garden with the weight of an impossible decision. She didn't sleep that night. How could she? Her mind spun in circles, weighing options that seemed equally impossible. Stay and become queen, her, a street omega, ruling beside the most powerful alpha in the kingdom. The court would eat her alive. Enemies would use her as a weakness. She'd never be safe, never be. But she'd be with Theron. With Alara. With the family that had somehow found her in the ruins of her old life. Leave and be safe. Start over. Live the quiet life she'd always imagined. Free from danger, from politics, from the weight of a crown she'd never wanted. But she'd never see Alara again. Never hold her while she cried. Never hear her laugh or watch her grow. And Theron. Gods, Theron. Even thinking about leaving him made her wolf howl in protest. The bond was already there, thrumming beneath her skin, tying her to him in ways she was only beginning to understand. By dawn, she still hadn't decided. So she made the only choice she could. She packed a small bag and wrote Alara a letter she couldn't read without crying. Sweetheart, you are the bravest, kindest, most wonderful little girl I've ever known. Never forget that. Stay brave. Stay kind. Your papa loves you more than anything in the world. Be good for him. All my love, Kira. She left it on Alara's bedside table. Then, before she could change her mind, she slipped through the quiet palace toward the gates. The guards there looked surprised to see her at dawn, but they knew she was under the king's protection. They didn't stop her. She was almost through the gates when she heard his voice. Kira. She turned. Theron stood in the courtyard, still in the clothes he'd worn the night before, like he hadn't slept either. His hair was disheveled, his face drawn. He looked human. Vulnerable. Real. You're leaving, he said. Not a question. I don't know. I thought maybe if I got far enough away, I could think clearly. Without, she gestured helplessly between them. Without this pulling at me. The bond. The bond. The impossibility. All of it. She took a shaky breath. I'm scared, Theron. Not of you. Of what being with you would mean. Of failing. Of not being enough. I'm scared too. He moved closer, slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. I'm terrified, actually. Because you're right, this is impossible. It shouldn't work. By every logical measure, it's doomed to fail. Then why? Because logic doesn't account for this. He pressed a hand to his chest. For what I feel when I see you with Alara. For the way my wolf settles when you're near. For the fact that I haven't felt this alive, this human, in years. Maybe ever. He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. I told you about Lyanna. About the loveless marriage. But I didn't tell you the worst part. Kira waited, her bag heavy in her hand. I didn't care when she betrayed me. Didn't care when she died. I should have, but I felt nothing. Just, empty. His voice cracked slightly. I thought I was broken. That whatever part of me could feel love had died long before. Then you walked into my life and proved me wrong. You made me feel again. Care again. Hope again. Tears burned in Kira's eyes. I don't know if I can do this. I know. Which is why I'm offering you the choice again. The gold, the freedom, the clean break, it's still yours if you want it. He held out a heavy coin purse. Take it. Leave. Be safe and free. I'll explain to Alara. I'll make sure you're never bothered again. Kira looked at the purse. At the gates beyond him. At the freedom that suddenly felt more like loneliness. Then she looked at Theron. At the vulnerability in his eyes. At the man behind the crown who just laid his heart bare before her. Her wolf made a low, contented sound. Finally, it seemed to say. Finally, you see. She began. And that's when the arrows came. They flew from the walls, from the gardens, from positions that should have been held by loyal guards. A coordinated attack, perfectly timed for when both she and Theron were exposed in the courtyard. Theron moved faster than should be possible. He was in front of her in a heartbeat, his body shielding hers as arrows thudded into flesh. She heard his sharp intake of breath, felt him stagger. Theron. She tried to catch him, but he was already shoving her toward the palace. Run, he roared. Get inside. Get to Alara. More arrows. Shouting. Guards pouring into the courtyard, but they were coming from inside the palace. Where were the wall guards? Oh gods. Oh gods, they'd been compromised. This wasn't just an attack. This was an invasion. A figure dropped from the wall near Kira. She caught a glimpse of a face, southern pack markings on his cheek, before Theron was there, tearing the assassin's throat out with his bare hands. No wolf form, no hesitation. Just primal, savage protection. The princess, someone screamed from inside the palace. They're in the princess's chambers. Everything else fell away. Kira ran. She ran faster than she'd ever run, Theron somehow beside her despite the arrows in his back, both of them racing through corridors that had become a battlefield. Guards fought in the hallways. Blood stained the marble floors. And somewhere ahead, Alara was in danger. They burst into the royal wing to find it swarming with southern pack wolves. At least a dozen, all focused on Alara's door. Theron's roar shook the walls. He shifted mid-stride, becoming the massive black wolf that was the Winter King's true form. He tore through the attackers like a force of nature, and Kira felt her wolf surge forward. Felt the partial shift take over, lending her speed and strength she'd never accessed before. She fought her way to Alara's door, desperation giving her courage she didn't know she had. Inside the room, 2 assassins had Alara backed into a corner. The little girl was in her nightgown, tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't cowering. She was baring her teeth, a low growl in her throat. Fighting even though she was terrified. Kira didn't think. She attacked. She wasn't a warrior. Wasn't trained in combat. But she was Omega, and this child was hers to protect, and that made her more dangerous than any assassin expected. She took down the first one with claws to the throat. The second turned on her, and she braced for a blow that never came because Theron was there, grabbing the man and breaking his neck with a single, efficient motion. Then silence. Except for Alara's terrified breathing and the sounds of fighting dying down outside. Kira dropped to her knees in front of the princess. Are you hurt? Did they? Alara threw herself into Kira's arms, sobbing. I thought you left. I read your letter and thought you left me. I'm here. I'm here. Kira held her tight, ignoring her own injuries, the blood that wasn't hers soaking her dress. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. I promise. Behind them, Theron shifted back to human form. She heard him giving orders, heard guards confirming the attack was over, the assassins dead or captured. Then his hand was on her shoulder, gentle despite everything. Kira. She looked up at him. He was bleeding from multiple wounds, exhausted, terrifying in his violence and beautiful in his strength. Her mate. Her impossible, complicated, dangerous mate. I'm staying, she heard herself say. I choose to stay. I choose this. I choose you. Something in his eyes broke open. Before she could say anything else, before she could second-guess or analyze or think, he dropped to his knees beside her and Alara, pulling them both into his arms. Thank the gods, he breathed against her hair. Thank the gods. And outside the window, the sun rose on a new day. One where everything had changed. Where a street Omega had become the Winter King's chosen mate. Where enemies had been revealed and battles won. Where a family had formed in blood and fire and impossible choices. Where the real challenges were only just beginning. Chapter 4. The poison hit Kira's system like liquid fire. She didn't feel it at first, too much adrenaline, too much fear, too focused on Alara crying in her arms. It wasn't until Theron gently pried the little girl away, passing her to a trusted guard, that Kira noticed the slash across her ribs. Deep. Bleeding more than it should. It's nothing, she tried to say, but her tongue felt thick. Heavy. Theron's eyes went wide with horror. He dropped to his knees beside her, his fingers hovering over the wound. No. No, no, no. What? The word came out slurred. Why couldn't she speak properly? The blade. His voice was raw. Kira, the blade was poisoned. The world tilted sideways. Strong arms caught her before she hit the floor. Theron's face swam in and out of focus above her, his mouth moving, but the words came from very far away. Get the healers now. Omega poison, Your Majesty, we don't have. Find it, steal it, I don't care, just save her. Her body convulsed. The fire in her veins turned to ice, then back to fire. She could feel it spreading, crawling through her like something alive and hungry. Her wolf whimpered, retreating to some deep place inside her where the poison couldn't reach. Kira, stay with me. Theron's voice cut through the fog. His hand cupped her face, and the touch anchored her. Look at me, love. Stay with me. Ilara, she managed to gasp out. Safe. Safe. She's safe because of you. Now let me save you. But his eyes told a different story. They told her this was bad. Worse than bad. The royal healer arrived, an ancient woman with silver hair and hands that moved with practiced efficiency. She took one look at the wound, one sniff of the blood, and her face went pale. Nightshade venom, she whispered. Mixed with wolfsbane and something else. Something specifically designed to kill Omegas. Her eyes met Theron's. Your Majesty, I don't have the antidote. No one does. This poison is rare, created by dark magic users in the Forbidden Forest. Then we go to the Forbidden Forest. Theron's voice was absolute. Final. We get the antidote. Your Majesty, you can't leave the kingdom. Not now. Not with. I can and I will. He gathered Kira into his arms, cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing. Ready my fastest horses. A small guard unit, no more than 5, I want speed over numbers. We leave within the hour. But the kingdom. The kingdom will survive without me for a few days. She won't. His eyes blazed with something fierce and terrible. I didn't wait 20 years to find my mate only to lose her to a coward's poison. Now move. People moved. Kira drifted in and out after that. She remembered being carried through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Remembered Ilara's tear-stained face pressed against a window as they rode out. Remembered the steady rhythm of a horse beneath her, Theron's arms locked around her like iron bands, his voice in her ear telling her to hold on, just hold on, he had her. The poison made everything strange. Time moved wrong, sometimes too fast, sometimes glacially slow. She'd surface to consciousness and find them riding through darkness, then blink and suddenly it was dawn. Blink again and they were in dense forest, the trees so thick overhead that no sunlight penetrated. How long? She heard herself ask during one of the clear moments. 2 days. Theron's voice was rough with exhaustion. We're almost there. You should go back. The kingdom. The kingdom has competent advisors. Let them handle things for once. His arms tightened around her. I'm not losing you, Kira. Not for a throne. Not for anything. Stupid Alpha, she mumbled, but there was no heat in it. Abandoning your kingdom for an Omega. Not an Omega. My Omega. My mate. My future queen. He pressed his lips to her hair. And I'd burn the whole damn kingdom to ash before I let you die. So stop arguing and save your strength. She wanted to argue more, but the poison pulled her under again. When she next woke, they were stopped. No longer moving. Voices nearby, tense and angry. Can't be here, Your Majesty. This is rogue territory. They don't respect pack law, don't acknowledge any Alpha's authority. I don't care what they acknowledge. We need what's in that cave. Theron's voice, cold and commanding. Stay with her. If I'm not back in an hour, take her and ride for the capital. Don't stop, don't look back. Your Majesty, you can't go alone. Watch me. Kira forced her eyes open. They were in a clearing, surrounded by trees so old they looked like they'd been there since the world began. Guards stood in a nervous cluster around the horses. And Theron was walking away, toward a dark opening in a hillside that radiated wrongness. No. Her voice came out as a croak, but it was enough. He stopped. Kira. Not alone. Don't go alone. He was back at her side in seconds, kneeling beside where they'd laid her on a blanket. I have to. The antidote is in there, in that cave system. But it's guarded by rogues who'd love nothing more than to kill a king. Then take guards. I can't risk that many. And I won't risk you by leaving you unprotected. His hand cupped her face. I'll be fast. I promise. Theron. She caught his wrist, using what little strength she had left. I'm dying anyway if you don't come back. So don't die in there. Please. Something in his eyes cracked. I won't. I have too much to live for now. He kissed her, quick and hard and full of promise, then he was gone, disappearing into that dark cave like he was swallowed by the earth itself. The waiting was torture. Kira drifted in and out, each breath a little harder than the last. The guards tried to hide their worry, but she could smell their fear. They thought she was going to die out here. They thought their king was going to get himself killed trying to save her. Maybe they were right. Time stretched. An hour passed. Then another. The guards grew more agitated. We should go in after him. He said to wait. He could be dead already. Then the screaming started. It came from the cave, echoing through the forest. Snarls and roars and the sounds of violence. The guards drew their weapons, torn between orders to protect Kira and the instinct to help their king. Go, Kira gasped. Help him. But your majesty said. He's dying in there. Go. 3 of the guards ran for the cave. 2 stayed with Kira, hands on their weapons, eyes scanning the trees. More sounds of battle. Then silence. Awful, stretching silence. Kira tried to sit up and failed. The poison had her now, really had her. Her vision was going dark around the edges. Her wolf was barely a whisper in her mind. This was it. This was how she died, in a forest clearing, having never been properly mated, having never told Theron that she loved him. Because she did love him. Impossible, improbable, too fast love that had taken root in her heart anyway. Movement at the cave entrance. A figure stumbled out and Kira's heart nearly stopped because it was Theron, but he was covered in blood and limping badly. The guards rushed to support him, but he shook them off, his eyes locked on Kira. He collapsed beside her, and she saw the extent of the damage. Deep gashes across his chest. His left arm hanging at a wrong angle. Bite marks on his throat that had narrowly missed the major arteries. But in his good hand, he clutched a small vial of luminescent liquid. Got it, he gasped out. The antidote. Kira, I got it. You're hurt. She could barely see him now, the darkness creeping in faster. Doesn't matter. You first. He uncorked the vial with his teeth, his hands shaking. Open your mouth, love. That's it. The liquid tasted like moonlight and spring rain. It burned going down, but it was a clean burn, a healing burn. She felt it hit her system, felt it start to fight the poison. But it was slow. So slow. And Theron. Theron's eyes rolled back. He collapsed beside her, his breathing shallow and labored. No. Kira tried to reach for him, but her body wouldn't respond. No, Theron, stay awake. Your Majesty. The guards were there, trying to assess his wounds. The damage is too extensive. We need to get him to a healer. We're 2 days from the capital. He won't make it. The senior guard's voice was grim. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. The king. No. Kira felt something snap inside her. Some final reserve of strength she didn't know she had. The antidote was working faster now, burning away the poison, giving her back control of her limbs. No, he doesn't die. Not for me. Not like this. She dragged herself to Theron's side. His skin was cold, his pulse thready. He was slipping away, and the healers were days distant, and she couldn't. Wait. The healer's words echoed in her mind. Your Omega healing abilities only work on your true mate. She'd never healed anyone before. Had never even tried. Omega healing was rare, usually only manifesting in fully mated pairs. But Theron was her true mate. The bond was there, incomplete but real, thrumming between them like a living thing. Maybe it would be enough. Everyone back, she ordered. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Give us space. My lady, what are you? I'm saving him. Now back up. The guards retreated, confused but obedient. Kira placed her hands on Theron's chest, right over his heart. She could feel it beating, weak and irregular. She closed her eyes and reached for the bond. It was there, golden and strong, connecting them at some level deeper than flesh or blood. She'd felt it from the beginning, that pull, that recognition, that sense of home. Now she grabbed onto it with everything she had and pulled. Her wolf surged forward to meet his. She felt the moment of connection like electricity, like lightning striking her spine. The partial bond flared to life, incomplete but powerful, and through it flowed her healing energy. She'd never done this before. Didn't know if she was doing it right. But she poured everything into him, her strength, her life force, her very essence. The bond demanded intimacy, demanded vulnerability, and she gave it without hesitation. She felt his wounds as if they were her own. Felt the torn muscles, the broken bones, the blood loss. And she felt her power knitting them back together, cell by cell, slowly but surely. The world fell away. There was only this, the bond, the healing, the desperate fight to keep him alive. She lost track of time. Lost track of everything except the steady rhythm of his heart under her palms. Live, she commanded through the bond. Live, you stubborn alpha. You don't get to die on me. Not after everything. Not after. She couldn't finish the thought because she was crying, tears streaming down her face and landing on his chest. I love you, she thought at him, into him, through the bond that connected their souls. I love you and I choose you and you don't get to leave me alone. Not now. Not ever. His heart stuttered. Then strengthened. Then beat steady and true. His eyes opened. Kira? His voice was rough, confused. What? She collapsed on top of him, exhausted beyond measure but laughing through her tears. You're alive. You stupid, reckless, wonderful alpha, you're alive. His arms came up around her, weaker than usual but there. Real. Did you just heal me? I think so. I don't know. Maybe. She lifted her head to look at him. How do you feel? Like I got trampled by a herd of elk, but alive. His hand came up to cup her face. You saved me. You saved me first. We're even. No. His eyes were intense, burning with something that made her wolf purr. No, we're not even close to even. You just partially completed our bond to heal me. Kira, do you understand what that means? She understood. A partial bond was intimate, powerful, usually only done in private between consenting mates. It wasn't complete, that required the full mating bite and ceremony, but it tied them together in ways that couldn't be undone. I understand, she whispered. And I don't regret it. Neither do I. He pulled her down for a kiss that was gentle despite everything they'd just been through. My brave, fierce, impossible Omega. What am I going to do with you? Love me, she suggested, and his laugh was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Already do, love. Already do. They made it back to the capital 4 days later, both of them still healing but alive. The guards had been shocked by Kira's healing ability, but they'd kept their mouths shut, for now. Word would spread eventually. It always did. But Kira couldn't bring herself to care. Not when Theron rode beside her, alive and whole. Not when they crested the final hill and saw the capital spread out below them. Or what was left of it. Smoke rose from multiple points in the city. Even from this distance, she could see the signs of battle, damaged walls, burned buildings, troops moving in formation. A siege. The capital was under siege. No. Theron's voice was hollow. No, not now. Not. A messenger rode up, his horse lathered with sweat. Your Majesty. Thank the gods you've returned. The city. Report. Theron's voice snapped back to command mode. Everything. Now. The messenger's words came out in a rush. Alpha Daemon Blackthorn marched on the capital 3 days ago with an army. Claims you abandoned the kingdom for, he shot an uncomfortable glance at Kira. Claims the throne is forfeit due to your absence. Several noble families have joined his cause. He's demanding the council hand over Princess Alara and surrender the city. Kira felt like she'd been punched. Alara. Gods, Alara was in there, in a city under siege. The princess? Theron's voice was deadly quiet. Safe in the palace, Your Majesty. Heavily guarded. But, the messenger hesitated. But what? She addressed the court, Your Majesty. The little princess. When the nobles started talking about surrender, she stood up and told them. He paused, something like awe in his voice. She told them her father was the rightful king, that he'd never abandon them, that Kira saved her life and was braver than any warrior. She said anyone who betrayed you was a coward and she'd remember them when she was queen. Something fierce and proud blazed in Theron's eyes. That's my daughter. Your Majesty, there's more. The messenger looked uncomfortable. Marcus has returned. Your former head beta. He's in the throne room, claiming he has intelligence about Blackthorn's forces. The council doesn't know whether to trust him. Marcus. The man who'd suggested killing Alara, who'd been banished in disgrace. What game was he playing now? How long can the palace hold? Theron demanded. Days, maybe a week with rationing. Blackthorn's forces outnumber the palace guard 3-1. If the city falls. The city won't fall. Theron's voice rang with absolute certainty. Because I'm here. And I'm taking back what's mine. He kicked his horse into a gallop, and Kira followed without hesitation. They thundered down the hill toward the capital, toward the battle, toward whatever fresh hell waited for them. But they rode together. And somehow, that made all the difference. Getting into the city was easier than expected. The southern gate was still held by loyalist forces, and when they saw their king returning, the cheer that went up could probably be heard all the way to Daemon's camp. The Winter King returns. His Majesty lives. We're saved. Theron didn't slow down. He rode straight for the palace, through streets that bore the scars of fighting, past civilians who stared in shock and then hope. Kira stayed close, hyper-aware of every shadow, every potential threat. They burst into the throne room to find chaos. Nobles shouting at each other. Council members red-faced with argument. And in the center of it all, standing before the throne with a smirk that made Kira want to hit him, was Marcus. Your Majesty, he said, bowing with exaggerated formality. How good of you to finally show up. Theron was off his horse and across the room before anyone could blink. His hand wrapped around Marcus's throat, slamming him against a pillar. Give me one reason, Theron growled, why I shouldn't kill you right here for treason. Because, I have, intelligence, Marcus gasped out. The only thing you have is a death wish. Theron. Kira's voice cut through the tension. She dismounted more carefully, her body still healing. Let him talk. We need to know what we're facing. Theron's jaw worked, but he released Marcus, shoving him away. Talk. Fast. Marcus coughed, rubbing his throat. Blackthorn has 3,000 troops surrounding the city. He's waiting for reinforcements from the eastern packs, another 2,000, due to arrive in 3 days. Once they do, he'll launch a full assault. The city will fall in hours. Why are you telling us this? Kira asked. What do you gain? Marcus's eyes found hers, and for the first time, she saw something almost like respect there. Because I created this mess. Blackthorn, the instability, all of it, I orchestrated Queen Liona's affair, manipulated her into betraying Theron, arranged her death. I thought I could control the aftermath, use the chaos to position myself as regent through Alara. The room went deathly silent. But I underestimated you, Marcus continued, looking at Theron. Your love for Alara. Your strength. Your refusal to break even when I broke everything around you. And now my machinations have created something far worse, a tyrant who'll destroy everything if he takes the throne. Blackthorn doesn't want to rule. He wants to conquer. And I can't, he paused, something almost like shame crossing his face. I can't let that happen. You expect us to trust you, one of the council members sputtered. After everything you've admitted? No. I expect you to use me. I have maps of Blackthorn's camp, troop positions, supply lines. I know his strategy, his weaknesses. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I know I don't deserve it. I'm offering you the tools to win. Theron stared at him for a long moment. Why now? Because she was right. Marcus nodded at Kira. You asked me once what I gained from all this. The answer is nothing. I gained nothing but blood and regret. And if I have to spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales, then so be it. Use me. Then execute me when this is over if you must. But let me help save the kingdom I nearly destroyed. Before anyone could respond, a small voice cut through the room. Papa. Alara appeared in the doorway, flanked by guards. When she saw Theron, she broke free and ran, her little legs pumping as fast as they could go. Theron caught her, sweeping her up into his arms, his face transforming from cold fury to overwhelming love in an instant. You're back, Alara sobbed into his shoulder. You came back. Always, little wolf. Always. He kissed her hair, her forehead, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I heard you were very brave while I was gone. I told them. Alara pulled back to look at him seriously. I told them you'd never abandon us. That Kira was good and brave and anyone who said different was lying. Was I right? You were absolutely right. Theron's eyes found Kira over his daughter's head. Kira is the bravest person I know. And she's going to be your mother, if she'll have us. The room erupted in shocked murmurs, but Kira only had eyes for Alara. The little girl was looking at her with such hope, such desperate hope. Really? Alara whispered. You'll stay? You'll be my mama? Kira crossed the room, her heart so full it hurt. Really? I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Not ever again. Alara launched herself from Theron's arms into Kira's, nearly knocking her over. I love you, Kira. I love you so much. I love you too, little wolf. Kira held her close, breathing in her scent, sunshine and innocence and home. So much. When she looked up, Theron was watching them with an expression that made her chest ache. Love. Pure, uncomplicated love. Your Majesty, the head councilman said carefully, this is all very touching, but we're still under siege. We need a plan. Theron gently took Alara from Kira, setting his daughter down and kneeling to her level. Alara, I need you to go with the guards. Stay in your chambers until this is over. But Papa. No arguments. You were brave, and I'm proud of you. Now let me be brave for you. He kissed her forehead. I'll come find you when it's safe. I promise. Elara hugged him tight, then Kira, then let the guards lead her away. The moment she was gone, Theron's demeanor shifted. The father disappeared, and the Winter King returned. Marcus, show me everything you have. Council, prepare for a siege defense. I want every able-bodied fighter armed and on the walls by nightfall. His voice rang with absolute command. Blackthorn thinks he can take my throne while I'm gone. Let's show him the cost of that mistake. The next 72 hours were a blur of preparation. Marcus, true to his word, provided detailed intelligence. Blackthorn's camp was overconfident, their defenses lax. They expected to wait out the siege, not face a coordinated counterattack. That arrogance would be their downfall. Theron planned the battle with ruthless efficiency. He'd split their forces, one group to defend the palace, one to strike at Blackthorn's camp at dawn when they'd be least prepared. It was risky, but it was the only way to win before the Eastern Pack reinforcements arrived. Kira found herself pulled into war councils, much to the nobles' dismay. But Theron insisted. She was his mate, his future queen, and she needed to know everything. More than that, her perspective was valuable. She saw things the warriors missed, suggested strategies they'd overlooked. What about the civilians? She asked during one planning session. If fighting breaks out in the city streets, they'll be trapped. We evacuate them to the palace, Theron said. Anyone who wants sanctuary gets it. That will strain our resources, a councilman began. I don't care. We protect our people. All of them. That's non-negotiable. And they did. Over the next 2 days, hundreds of civilians flooded into the palace grounds, turning the courtyards and gardens into refugee camps. Kira helped organize them, her Omega instincts making her a natural at calming fears and coordinating resources. She saw how the people responded to her, with gratitude and respect that had nothing to do with rank. She was one of them, a nobody who'd risen to stand beside a king. She gave them hope. On the third morning, just before dawn, the attack began. Theron led the assault force himself, taking half their best fighters and striking Blackthorn's camp with brutal efficiency. Kira wanted to go with him, but he'd been adamant. She was still healing from the poison, and he needed her here to coordinate the palace defenses. If something goes wrong, he'd told her the night before, his forehead pressed to hers, if I don't make it back. Don't. She'd stopped him with a kiss. Don't say it. You're coming back. We both are. Because we have a life to build, a daughter to raise, a kingdom to change. Promise me something, he'd said quietly. If Blackthorn wins. If he takes the throne. Promise me you'll take Elara and run. Get her somewhere safe. Don't let him. He won't win. She'd said it with absolute certainty. Because you're stronger, smarter, and you have something worth fighting for. He's just angry and ambitious. You'll crush him. He'd kissed her then, deep and claiming, and she'd tasted the fear beneath his confidence. He was terrified. Not for himself, for her, for Elara, for everything they stood to lose. But he'd gone anyway. Because that's what kings did. What alphas did. What fathers did. Now Kira stood on the palace walls, watching smoke rise from Blackthorn's camp as the sun broke the horizon. Sounds of battle echoed across the distance, steel on steel, wolves snarling, screams of the dying. She felt Theron through their partial bond. Felt his determination, his fury, his absolute focus. He was alive. Still fighting. Still. The bond flared with sudden pain, and Kira gasped, gripping the wall for support. My lady? A guard stepped forward, concerned. Are you? He's hurt. She could barely breathe around the pain in her chest. Theron's hurt. And then, as if her words had summoned disaster, she saw them. Figures moving through the city streets below, dozens of them, all heading for the palace. Blackthorn's forces, a second wave they hadn't anticipated. The attack on the camp had been a feint. The real assault was here. Sound the alarm, she shouted. Prepare for battle. They're coming. Chaos erupted. Guards rushing to positions. Civilians screaming. And through it all, Kira felt Theron's desperation through the bond. He'd realized the trap too late, was trying to get back, but he was too far away. The palace gates shuddered under the first impact. Then the second. Then they burst open, and Blackthorn's wolves poured through. Kira ran, not away from the danger but toward it. Toward the royal wing where Alara was hidden. The guards there were good, but they were outnumbered. She had to get to the princess before. She turned a corner and stopped dead. Damon Blackthorn stood in the corridor, and he had Alara. The little girl was struggling in his grip, crying, terrified. He had a knife to her throat, and his eyes were mad with triumph and rage. Well, well, he purred. The Omega whore herself. Come to watch me take everything from your precious king? Let her go. Kira's voice was steady despite the terror screaming through her. She's a child. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this. She's his weakness. His vulnerability. And now she's my leverage. His knife pressed closer to Alara's skin, drawing a thin line of blood. You're going to take me to the throne room. You're going to announce my victory. And if you don't, I'll kill this little bastard right here. Rage unlike anything Kira had ever felt roared through her. Her wolf, silent for so long, surged forward with a fury that shook her to her core. You made a mistake, Kira heard herself say, and her voice had gone cold. Deadly. You threatened my daughter. She shifted. Not partially this time. Fully. Completely. Her Omega wolf burst free, smaller than an alpha's but fast, so fast. She was across the distance before Damon could react, her jaws closing on his knife arm, wrenching it away from Alara's throat. He screamed, dropping the child. Alara scrambled away, and Kira's wolf positioned herself between the princess and the threat, teeth bared, a growl rumbling from her chest that promised death. Damon shifted too, his alpha wolf massive and furious. He should have crushed her. Should have torn her apart in seconds. But he underestimated her. Omega wolves weren't built for brute strength. They were built for speed, for agility, for protecting what mattered most. And nothing mattered more to Kira than the child behind her. She fought like a demon. Darting in, striking, dancing away before he could land a blow. Her jaws found his legs, his flanks, his throat when he made the mistake of lunging too far. She wasn't trying to kill him, she was trying to survive, to hold him off until... Theron's roar shook the palace. He appeared at the end of the corridor, his wolf massive and black and absolutely murderous. Blood matted his fur, his own and others, and his eyes glowed with an alpha's fury. Damon tried to run. Kira's teeth in his hind leg stopped him. And then Theron was there, and it was over in seconds. Brutal, efficient, absolute. The Winter King's jaws closed on Damon Blackthorn's throat, and the would-be usurper died without ceremony, without honor, without anything but the wet sound of his life ending. Theron shifted back to human form, breathing hard, still covered in blood. His eyes found Kira, who'd also shifted back, and then Alara, who was crying in the corner. Is she hurt? His voice was raw. I'm okay, Papa, Alara sobbed. Kira saved me. She was so brave. Theron crossed to them in 2 strides, pulling them both into his arms. You're both brave. Both so brave. And I'm so sorry, I should have been here, should have seen the trap. You're here now. Kira held him tight, ignoring the blood, the pain, everything except the fact that they were alive. All of them, together. That's all that matters. Outside, the sounds of battle were fading. Blackthorn's forces, leaderless and demoralized, were surrendering. The siege was over. They'd won. The aftermath took weeks to sort through. Trials for the nobles who'd betrayed the crown. Reparations for the damage to the city. Negotiations with the southern packs to prevent future conflicts. It was exhausting, endless work. But through it all, Theron made one thing absolutely clear. Kira was his mate and future queen, and anyone who had a problem with that could leave. Some did. Most stayed. And slowly, grudgingly, the court began to accept the impossible. Their Winter King had chosen an Omega, and she was transforming everything. Kira used her new position to push for reforms. Better protections for Omegas across the kingdom. Education programs for children regardless of rank. Resources for the poor, the forgotten, the overlooked. Theron backed her completely, using his absolute authority to rewrite laws that had stood for generations. "You're going to cause a revolution," Marcus said one day. He'd been given a choice, execution or exile. To everyone's surprise, Theron had offered a third option, redemption. Marcus now served as an advisor, his knowledge of court politics invaluable, though trust came slowly. "Good," Kira replied. "Some things need to be torn down before they can be rebuilt." Elara flourished with two parents who loved her. She took to calling Kira Mama within days, and the formal adoption ceremony was scheduled for the next full moon. The little girl who'd been terrified and traumatized was becoming brave and joyful again, her laughter echoing through the palace halls. And Kira finally understood what home felt like. Not a place, but people. A family. Belonging. The full mating ceremony was held on a winter night when snow fell soft and silent over the capital. Theron marked her beneath the full moon, his bite on her throat a claim and a promise. She marked him in return, Omega and Alpha bound completely and forever. The bond that had been partial flared into completion, and through it, Kira felt everything, his love, his devotion, his absolute commitment to their future. And he felt hers, just as strong, just as sure. "My queen," he whispered against her lips when the ceremony was done. "My king," she whispered back. And the kingdoms celebrated late into the night, though some watched from the shadows with envy and fear. The werewolf world was changing, whether they liked it or not. 3 months later, Kira woke to nausea and the certain knowledge that her life was about to change again. The physician confirmed it the next day. Pregnant. An Omega carrying an Alpha King's child, rare, powerful, and extremely dangerous given recent events. "We'll double the guards," Theron said immediately, his hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. "Triple them. No one gets close to you without clearance." "Theron, I can't live in a cage." "I'm not asking you to." His eyes met hers, fear and wonder warring in their depths. "But I almost lost you twice. I won't risk it again. Not when you're carrying our child." Kira softened, placing her hand over his. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we can't let fear rule us. That's what our enemies want. Our enemies." He said it grimly. "There will be more, you know. Word is already spreading about our bond, about the changes we're making. Not every pack is happy about an Omega Queen. Let them be unhappy." Kira's voice held steel now. "We're building something better. Something worth fighting for." Elara burst into the room then, because palace doors meant nothing to an excited 5-year-old. "Mama. Papa. Cook made honey cakes and she said I could have 2 if I asked permission and I'm asking, so can I please please please?" Theron laughed, the tension breaking. 2 honey cakes? That's a lot of sugar, little wolf. But I've been so good. I did all my letters and I didn't argue when Tutor Marcus said I had to learn history even though it's boring, she caught herself. I mean, even though it's very important and educational. "Nice save," Kira said, pulling the little girl into a hug. "Yes, you can have 2 honey cakes. But you have to share one with me. Deal?" Elara squirmed free and ran for the door, then stopped and turned back. "Are you happy, Mama? You look happy." Kira's throat tightened. "I am happy, sweetheart. So happy." "Good. You deserve to be happy. You and Papa both. Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Theron wrapped his arms around Kira from behind, his hands splaying across her stomach. She's right, you know. You do deserve to be happy. So do you. Kira leaned back against him. After everything you've been through. Everything we've been through. I never thought I'd have this, he admitted quietly. A mate who actually loves me. A daughter who's thriving. Another child on the way. Peace, or something close to it. It feels too good to be real. It's real. Kira turned in his arms to face him. And yes, there will be challenges ahead. There always are. But we'll face them together. Together, he echoed, and kissed her softly. The whisper started within days. At first, Kira thought she was imagining the changed looks, the conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. But then a letter arrived, unsigned, untraceable, left on her pillow despite all the security. The abomination grows in your womb. You've corrupted the bloodline. This will not stand. She burned it immediately, but the words haunted her. Someone in the palace, someone with access to the royal chambers, wanted her gone. Wanted the baby gone. She told Theron that night, and his fury was cold and absolute. Marcus, he called, and the former traitor-turned-advisor appeared within minutes. I want every servant, every guard, every noble in this palace investigated. Someone is threatening the queen. Find them. Your Majesty, if we start an inquisition, it could create panic. I don't care. My mate and child are threatened. Find them. But the investigation turned up nothing. Whoever had sent the letter was careful, clever, and patient. More letters came, each one more threatening than the last. Kira tried to hide her fear, but Theron saw it. Elara saw it. Is someone trying to hurt you? The little girl asked one morning, her eyes too knowing. I heard the guards talking. Kira couldn't lie to her. Some people don't like change, sweetheart. They're scared, and scared people sometimes do bad things. Are you scared? A little, Kira admitted. But your papa and all these guards won't let anything happen to me. Or to you. Or to the baby. Elara's face lit up. The baby. I almost forgot, I'm going to be a big sister. Then her expression turned fierce, so much like Theron it was startling. I won't let anyone hurt our baby, Mama. I'll protect you. Oh, sweetheart. Kira pulled her close. You don't have to protect anyone. That's what grown-ups are for. But you protected me. When the bad man had me. You fought him even though you're not an alpha. Elara looked up at her seriously. You taught me that being brave isn't about being big or strong. It's about protecting the people you love. So I can be brave too. Kira's eyes burned with tears. This child, this beautiful, fierce, brave child, was hers now. Truly hers. And she would move mountains to keep her safe. You're already brave, Kira whispered. The bravest little wolf I know. The attack came on a sunny afternoon when no one expected it. Kira was in the garden with Elara, reading under an oak tree while guards stood at a discreet distance. The day was warm, peaceful, perfect. And then an arrow flew past Kira's head, missing by inches, and embedded itself in the tree trunk. Everything happened at once. Guards shouting. Elara screaming. Kira grabbing the child and diving behind the tree as more arrows fell like deadly rain. Where were they coming from? The walls? The windows? Everywhere. They were coming from everywhere. This wasn't one assassin. This was coordinated. Planned. Multiple attackers working in concert. Theron appeared out of nowhere, his wolf form massive and protective. He positioned himself between Kira and the attacks, taking an arrow in his shoulder without flinching. Marcus was there too, shouting orders, organizing the guards into defensive positions. But there were too many. Too many arrows, too many attackers, Too much chaos. The palace, someone shouted. They're inside the palace. Horror flooded through Kira. If assassins were in the palace, that meant they'd gotten past all the security, all the measures Theron had put in place. That meant they have help, Marcus snarled, reaching the same conclusion. Someone on the inside let them in. A guard fell beside them, an arrow through his throat. Then another. They were being picked off systematically, professionally. This wasn't amateurs. This was military precision. Theron shifted back to human, blood streaming from his shoulder. Get them inside. Now. The vault room, it's the most defensible position. They ran. Kira carrying Alara, Theron and Marcus flanking them, the few remaining guards forming a protective circle. Arrows chased them through corridors that should have been safe. Bodies, servants, guards, people Kira knew by name, littered the floors. The palace had become a war zone. They made it to the vault room, a reinforced chamber deep in the palace where the crown jewels and important documents were kept. Theron sealed the door behind them, his hands shaking with fury and fear. Who? He demanded, rounding on Marcus. Who could organize this? Who has the resources, the access? The Eastern Pax, Marcus said grimly. They never forgave you for refusing their alliance. And they have sympathizers in your court, I've suspected for weeks but couldn't prove it. Then prove it now. Give me names. Your Majesty, with respect, names won't help us if we're dead. We need to. An explosion rocked the palace. Then another. The vault room shuddered but held. They're using explosives, Theron said, his voice deadly calm. They're going to bring down the palace around us. Kira held Alara close, the little girl's face buried in her shoulder. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything they'd survived. Not when she was carrying Theron's child, not when they'd finally found happiness. There's a tunnel, Marcus said suddenly. From this room to the old city. Built centuries ago as an escape route for the royal family. I found it in the archives when I was researching, he caught himself. When I was planning my own schemes. It's forgotten and used, but it should still be passable. Show me, Theron commanded. Marcus moved to the back wall, pressing a series of stones in a sequence that seemed random but clearly wasn't. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing darkness and the smell of damp earth. It comes out in the slums, Marcus said. Near the river district. If we can get there. We can disappear into the city. Regroup. Come back with reinforcements. Theron's mind was already working, planning. He turned to the remaining guards. You four, hold this position as long as you can. Make them think we're still here. When you can't hold any longer, surrender. I'll make sure you're rewarded for your loyalty. Your Majesty, one guard began to protest. That's an order. Theron's voice was absolute. Protect my kingdom by letting them think they've won. We'll come back for you. He grabbed a torch from the wall and led the way into the tunnel. Kira followed with Alara, Marcus bringing up the rear. Behind them, the vault door shuddered under another impact. The tunnel was narrow, old, terrifying. Water dripped from the ceiling. Strange sounds echoed in the darkness. Alara whimpered, and Kira sang softly to her, a lullaby her own mother had sung, one of the few memories she had from before the abandonment. They walked for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The tunnel sloped downward, growing damper, colder. Kira's feet splashed through puddles. The torch threw dancing shadows on the walls. And then, finally, fresh air. A shaft of sunlight through a crack in the ceiling. They'd made it. Marcus pushed aside the concealing stone, and they emerged into an alley in the slums. Kira's old neighborhood. She recognized the buildings, the smells, the sounds. Full circle, from these streets to the palace and back again. Now what? She asked. Theron's expression was grim. Now we survive. We hide. We find out who's behind this and how deep the conspiracy goes. He looked at Marcus. You have contacts in the underground. People who owe you favors. Some. Though most would happily sell me out. Then we don't rely on favors. We rely on gold. Theron pulled a ring from his finger, heavy gold, set with the royal seal. This will buy us time, resources, answers. And then we take back what's ours, Kira finished. He looked at her, this Omega Queen in a torn dress, holding his daughter, carrying his child, standing in the slums where she'd once sold charms to survive. And his expression filled with something that looked like awe. You're magnificent, he said softly. You know that? I'm terrified, she admitted. But I'm angry too. They tried to kill our family. They tried to destroy what we've built. And I won't let them win. Elara lifted her head from Kira's shoulder. Are we hiding now? Like in my adventure books? Yes, sweetheart, Theron said, ruffling her hair. We're hiding. But not for long. Good. Elara's voice was fierce. Because when we come back, we should come back like lions. That's what the heroes do in the stories. They come back and they win. Like lions, Theron agreed, pulling both his girls close. I promise. In the distance, smoke rose from the palace. The home they'd built together, the life they'd fought for, was burning. But they were alive. Together. And that meant hope. That meant they could rebuild. The whispers in the kingdom's shadows had wanted to destroy them. Instead, they'd created something far more dangerous, a Winter King with nothing left to lose, an Omega Queen with everything to fight for, and a little princess who believed in heroes. The werewolf world was about to learn that some bonds couldn't be broken. Some families couldn't be destroyed. Some loves were worth burning kingdoms for. And this one, this impossible, improbable, fierce family, was just getting started. Epilogue. 6 months later. The palace had been rebuilt. Stronger, better, with new security measures and loyal guards who'd been vetted personally by Marcus, who'd proven his worth a dozen times over in the months of exile and return. The conspirators had been rooted out, nobles from the eastern packs, sympathizers in the court, even 2 members of the royal council. Their trials had been swift, their punishments severe. Theron had shown no mercy to those who'd threatened his family. But he'd also shown surprising mercy to others. To the servants who'd been coerced, the guards who'd been deceived. To the civilians caught in the crossfire. His justice was harsh but fair, and slowly, the kingdom had begun to heal. Kira stood at the window of the royal chambers, her hand resting on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant now, and the child inside her was active and strong. An Omega carrying an Alpha King's heir, the physicians said it was going well, better than expected. The bond between her and Theron seemed to strengthen her, to give her resilience that surprised everyone. Mama. Elara burst into the room, as always. The child was 6 now, taller and more confident. Mama, the baker made a cake shaped like a wolf and it has purple frosting and Papa said I have to ask you if we can have it for dinner but it's not really dinner cake but maybe dessert cake Anne. Breathe, little wolf, Kira laughed. Yes, you can have cake for dessert. But you have to eat your actual dinner first. Deal. Elara started to run off, then stopped. Oh. I forgot. There's a letter. A messenger brought it from the northern packs. Papa's reading it now and he has his serious face on. Kira's stomach tightened. Letters from other packs usually meant political complications. Where is he? The study. Kira found Theron standing by his desk, a letter in his hands, his expression unreadable. When he saw her, he set the letter down carefully. What is it? She asked. An invitation. The northern packs want to meet with us. They've heard about the reforms, about the changes we're making for Omegas. They want, he paused, something like wonder in his voice. They want to discuss implementing similar changes in their territories. Kira's breath caught. Really? Really? He pulled her close, careful of her belly. You're changing the world, love. One kingdom at a time. We're changing it, she corrected. Together. Together, he agreed, and kissed her softly. The baby kicked hard, and they both felt it. Theron's hand moved to her stomach, his expression softening in a way it only did with family. Strong, he murmured. Just like their mother. And stubborn like their father, Kira teased. From the doorway, Alara made a gagging sound. You two are so mushy. It's gross. Come here, little wolf, Theron called, and when Alara joined them, he pulled her into the embrace too. This is what family looks like. Mushy and gross and perfect. Alara giggled, and the sound was everything. Hope and joy and the future they'd fought so hard to build. Outside the window, the kingdom spread out before them. Healing. Growing. Changing. And in the shadows, in the territories beyond their borders, others watched. Some with hope, some with fear, some with envy. The story of the Winter King and his Omega Queen had only just begun. There would be more challenges ahead, more enemies, more battles. But they would face them together. A family forged in fire and bound by love stronger than any crown, any title, any obstacle the world could throw at them. And that, Kira thought as she stood surrounded by her family, was the greatest victory of all. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.